Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. I got a wonderful email from one of the clients that I helped about 12 years ago. She relates to me how things have been happening in the last 12 years as a result of the work I did with her consulting in her business. And she hadn't told me a lot of these things until today. But it was such a blessing, and I share it with you now because it proves that the things we talk about here every week, about God inspiring us and God putting ideas into our minds, often we think that we are thinking of things, but if we pay attention, we notice, if we really pay attention, that when we think of things, sometimes, and quite often, it's God telling us things. It's not really that we're thinking. It's really that He's telling us and speaking in our minds. And here's the case in point. This particular woman was a consultant in the computer industry and still is. And her husband had passed away. They were very close, so her whole life was turned upside down. And in the process, she lost the income that her husband was making, so she had to double up and make more money now to compensate for loss of his income. And so she contacted me because a friend told her about my service of consulting. And so we went through her cash flow and her budgets and her client lists, etc. And we determined that she had adequate cash and sufficient cash for the next 60 days, and that she could reduce the pressure she was putting on herself for at least 7 days to get some peace and some focus. And then once she has peace and focus, she could launch some plans to save her business. And that's what she did, and that's what we did 12 years ago. And the process was very simple. I told her many of the things that you've been hearing on our weekly radio show. Like, for example, to ask God before you do things, ask God what to do, ask God to inspire you, ask God to put ideas into your mind all day long. And in her case, not to worry for 7 days, but to take 7 days and just give her mind and her stress and her anxiety all to God and keep asking Him every day what to do. And she was blessed in those 7 days because God would tell her to take breaks, to go for a walk in the park, to clean her house instead of making phone calls. And what happened was every single morning for 7 days, she would wake up with brilliant ideas, brilliant inspirations about pushing her business forward. And after those 7 days, she had a concrete, definite foundation for her plan. She bought lists of clients from other businesses that she could approach so that she instantaneously picked up something like 100 clients from a list of about 1,000 names. And she had a list to pursue, and she knew what their needs were, and her business began to thrive. And all of this was because for 7 days she kept doing what God told her to do. And every morning when she woke up, the first thing that happened was God would put ideas into her mind about what to do in the remaining time of her 60 days to build her business. And she's been successful ever since. And she's remarried, and she has a wonderful marriage as well. Oh, in addition to all of this, she told me in her message today that she's been using the same process for the last 12 years. She asks God what to do about all of her serious decisions, all of her important decisions. Her husband likewise does the same, and that's why they have a great marriage, and that's why their business is thriving, because they keep asking God what to do. It's really very simple, right? If we ask God what to do, the likelihood is He's going to love us and tell us what to do. Our next story is about one of our listeners who just took a vacation, went to Florida, and they had a series of coincidence miracles happening to them on their vacation, and they related some of them to us as follows. When they were leaving New York to go to Florida to catch their flight, they met a woman, the person writing to us is a woman, and they met another woman at the airport, and our contact, the lady who's listening to us and sending us the message, was relating to her about some coincidence miracles she has seen in her life, and how God inspires and gives ideas to us and guides us, and we experience miracles by following God's directions. And the woman she was talking to pulls a book out of her bag called God Calling. It's 2 words, God Calling, Calling, and it's a pretty famous book for people who ask God what to do and do what God tells them to do. And the person writing to us, our contact, had also read the book. So they had a wonderful discussion at the airport. But the coincidence was that 2 people who are very accustomed to asking God what to do had met each other at the airport, and now they've become friends, and they're sharing stories, miracle stories between each other now. While they were in Florida, the family they were dealing with and meeting, their family in Florida, decided to take them out for the day on a boat cruise around the mansions along the Florida shore. And when they got there, there was such a mob waiting to get onto the boat, and there was a long line of cars trying to get parked so they could get onto the boat while they were waiting for the boat to come in. So the parking lot was packed with people who were already out on boats, and it looked like they weren't going to get a place to park. And everybody was frustrated. The line was annoyed. People were complaining and blowing their horns. And this person who relates the story to us said that she was inspired to pray. She was in a car filled with family members, and so she decided to pray, and no one joined her, but she kept at it. And lo and behold, a cab pulls up alongside the car. The cab had those 7 number 7s, 7777, and 7 is the number that indicates God's permission and God's power. So the cab pulled up next to him. She looks out the other window at the parking lot, and there's a van in the parking lot with a sticker on it that says something like it said Jesus is the way. And they're still stuck in the line, but now they got the 7s on one side of the car, and on the other side there's a bumper sticker that says Jesus is the way. And the next thing that happens is a man knocks on her window and says, I'm going to be pulling out. If you need a parking place, I'm pulling out right there next to you. So if you stay here, I'll pull out and you can pull right in. And they got a spot, and they sound like they got one of the last places on the boat ride. but these are coincidence miracles that were happening to her specifically. The same woman relates another story on her way back home from Florida at the end of her vacation. The plane was packed. There were no spare seats on it. People were rescheduling because there was a snowstorm, freezing rain, etc. going on. They were trying to get out of town, and there were no extra seats on the plane. She winds up sitting in her seat, and a college student gets on the plane, and he had some equipment with him. He had to study for some college test or something, and he needed extra space because of the, computer or whatever he had. And so he was asking the stewardess if she could help get him a spot where he'd get some extra space. And they didn't realize at that time that the only open seat was between the person who wrote to us and the college student. God had provided a spare seat for this young student unbeknown to him, and the person writing to us was able to tell us the story because she heard it all. She heard how he needed the space. She could see that he needed space for his books and his whatever he was working with electronically, I don't know. And so she's the only person that knows on the plane that this college student was being blessed by God, and she relates the story to us. Our next story is something amazing that happened to me personally. I was asked by a men's group to give a presentation about my 2 books and about our radio shows and some of the things that have happened over the last 54 years, some of my miracle stories, etc., and then open up at the end and answer questions. So I was working on that, and as you know, if you've been listening to the radio shows or if you read my books, even if you just go to our website, which, by the way, is at wcatradio.com/miracles/, again, wcatradio.com/miracles/. If you go there, you'll find a wealth of information. The whole summation of my books and all my lectures and everything I do is I try to help people learn how simple and easy it is to have conversations with God. It really is remarkably simple and easy because you ask God questions and then He takes it from there. He decides how to answer you and how to get the answer into your thick head. In my case, my head is very thick. So I talk to God, and He figures out a way to get me the answers, and He's been doing that for 54 years, so I'm pretty expert at telling people, don't worry, just ask God, and He'll figure it out. Well, in the process of getting ready for this lecture, I decided to go to Mass one morning, and the priest homily, his lecture during the Mass, was an amazing thing. He said, we need to, as Christians, we need to convince other people to become friends of God and to discuss the plans they have with God and talk to God and ask Him questions and listen to His answers. Well, that kind of blew my mind because that's exactly what my lecture is going to be all about, and that's what my books are all about. So it was a definite miracle for me. God was confirming on that morning, and the next day I had to give my presentation. So the next day I went to a different church for Mass and a different priest, and at this next Mass, this different priest, during his homily, he says, we need to sit down every day and listen to God and pay attention and give God time to talk to us and listen to Him so we can plan our day out with His wisdom and His ideas about what we should be doing. So 2 days in a row at Mass, I heard priests say the same thing that my lecture was going to be all about, and of course my lecture was about the same thing. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.